Hi, welcome to today's episode of Speak Greasy at Mac Street Kitchen, where we talk to chefs who've delighted us with their food right here in this kitchen. My guest today is Chef Mohib Farooqui, who is the co-founder of Accentuate, a culinary studio and private dining space in Aurangabad, where we'll be talking a lot more about that space with Chef. So welcome to the show, Chef Mohib. It's so great to have you here. So I want to start at the beginning, and there's not a lot about you out there, so we're going to hopefully change this conversation and get you to tell us more about you. But I do believe that you went to culinary school in Sydney at the Cordon Bleu, and then you spent quite a bit of time actually down under working in different restaurants. But taking a step back, what prompted you to get into culinary world?
Culinary world, I feel that, since childhood, I'd never give any sort of trouble to my mom or to my sister to cook up a meal for me. I used to whip up, so it came very natural. And one of my cousins is the most senior-most food technologist in the country, so I happened to go to food fairs. And believe you me, the first chef I'd met was Sanjeev Kapoor through him, and I was kind of smitten by the entire thing. So yeah, that's what got me into the cooking.
You're the first chef who hasn't said that it was through my grandmother's kitchen that I learned how to cook.
Although my mother is a great cook, she comes from Hyderabad, so the food always has been very meat centric.
Is that home for you, Hyderabad? Yeah.
My parents are from Hyderabad. I never lived there, but I was born and raised in the Middle East because my dad was working in Saudi. So I moved to India when I was 13 and continued my education.
And that was in Aurangabad. Okay. So, Chef, you opted to go to Cordon Bleu in Sydney. And so how did that decision happen? And tell us a little bit about that experience.
So I did my hospitality management course at Aurangabad, the Taj School, but I was always inclined towards kitchen due to family pressure. They wanted me to take up a degree program. So I took that and finally bagged a job at Taj Bombay. But then still I felt that my base was not as strong as a culinary arts students would be. After a year of working at the Taj, I enrolled myself at Sydney Cordon Bleu because I didn't want to go through the French language courses to go to Paris and enroll there. So I chose Sydney campus, and plus I love beaches and just the vibe of how it's there down under. So I decided to go to Sydney, took up a course and started working at the same time. Yeah, so fell in love, stayed back for 6 years. Sydney for the first 3.5 years, and then moved up north in Great Barrier Reef to work on an island, a resort on an island called on Long Island. So worked there for 3 years, kept on buying time from parents for like every year. I would be like, give me one more year because they wanted me to be in close proximity to them. They were quite okay for me to be working outside, but being the only son, my parents were like, just stay somewhere nearby, say Dubai. Then this opportunity came by of Taj approaching me because that was the best thing at that point of time to get into L&D, learning and development for Taj Group. So they approached me when they found out that I've moved back. They approached me to become a trainer for the Taj Group. So that's...
And this is training for the
kitchen team, the new recruits of Taj, who happen to come every year. All the new recruits of Taj Group, they come down to Aurangabad and they stay there for a month and a half to go through many workshops and orientation. And plus, I was also teaching the students of Aurangabad.
Yeah, I was wondering, it was not the conventional route for a chef generally to move to teaching from restaurants, but it makes sense. And
something which fell into my lap. I didn't choose to become a teacher.
Well, it completely explains why you have this crazy student following that you do have. And I remember when you were coming to cook at Mac Street Kitchen, and you just within seconds of putting it out there, you had.
It was overwhelming.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And I know that having chefs who've been out there, worked around the world and come and share that experience is, I'm sure, like a a treasure trove for the students. So that's amazing. But what then prompted you to start?
What I was missing was cooking for real-time guests. So I always had this thing of when I first came across Relae, that's when I decided that, if I had to get back into the industry, I would probably go first and work at Relae and do something of my own. And yes, I applied, never got accepted. Then I used to write long cover letters and with the CV attached, and they never responded. They said we are full. Probably they didn't have the time to read what all I've done. And one fine day, I just decided that I'll write to a few restaurants which I like in Denmark, and I just wrote, "Hey, I'm from India. I'd like to come and stage at the
So
restaurant.
you ditched the long cover letter, basically.
Let me know if you want me to bring some Indian spices to cook up an Indian meal for staff food." And all of them said yes. Then it was a dilemma for me to choose which one, but it was Relae, which was love at first sight. So I decided to go.
Well, that's a great tip for anyone who's, having trouble with getting stages.
Don't write long cover letters. The chefs don't have the time to read.
Yeah, tell them what you can do for them, right? Yeah. That's a great tip there. But speaking of that, and just, sticking with this topic of students, is that something that you would recommend to, having been through the Indian culinary school program as well as studied abroad, is that something that you would recommend?
So I see that a lot with students from India going through a full-fledged culinary arts program, a 4-year program. That's how it is, like 3 years or 4 years at most of the schools now. And the end goal is to go and again start at Cordon Bleu. I keep saying I can just go straight, or don't just save that money and, go and stage at a restaurant and save a lot of money of your parents to not go through that expensive program because, a lot of LCB managers are my friends and they would be hating me right now. But then, go straight. Don't waste your time and just go straight and learn, because LCB or many of the international culinary, CIA, for example, they all, the produce is different, the techniques, you get to see everything. Here in India, it's because I've been a teacher at a couple of schools here. It's more from the books and it's more theoretical. And then when it comes to kitchen, it's very basic ingredients, which you got to play around with.
Coming back to Aurangabad, Chef, tell us what Accentuate's all about. And I know you cooked for the likes of Hillary Clinton. So what was that experience like? And how would you describe the space to someone?
So I'll start off how it came into existence. Accentuate Food Lab. We were opening a school for EHL, Lausanne, École Hôtelière in Gurgaon. The first school they had in Lavasa was almost shutting down. So Mr. Dilip Puri, who's ex-Starwood Asia MD, he decided to open a school for École Hôtelière, and we were working there. I got on board with I said this thing only on one condition, that if I could spend 3 days in Aurangabad taking care of my mother. So it was a 4-day, 3-day release thing. So I would be down on the weekends in Aurangabad, and decided I'll open up a small space wherein I would be able to do some trials and something I always wanted inside my house. I was looking for so many spaces in Aurangabad, and it just didn't make sense because I wanted to keep it super private, because the kind of food which I do, maybe for Aurangabad, is not the market I was not sure that most of the people would accept. So I wanted to keep it very private and very exclusive. So I decided I'll just renovate the same space and just open it there, because it's not a space where it's not an area it's a residential space. So a lot of naysayers were there who would say, oh, no one would come. So I still went with the gut feeling that, because I never kind of did any marketing. I let it grow organically. So the initial days were fun. Of course, you open so many restaurants. It was sleepless nights, doing all of the things by yourself, except for a dishwasher and a server who would come only on
During service.
During service. Yeah, a lot of blood and sweat went into creating that space. It initially started off in a 1-bedroom apartment. which it still is like it's a one-bedroom apartment which has been turned into a private dining space. So we converted the bedroom into a kitchen, and the front living room was split into two, and the dining room and a pass where the finishing happened.
What happened to the actual kitchen?
What happened to the actual kitchen and the living room was kind of a studio apartment. Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Like a one-bedroom studio kind of a space. So we turned the actual kitchen into a service bus. So there's a dining. So it's quite a small, tight space.
So 10 seat?
Eight. So it's only eight hours we do at a time. We do less as well sometimes because it's quite erratic. If someone, I started off by saying I was sitting on a high horse initially that, the minimum covers would be 6 we'll do. And it was very unfair from a business point of view as well that, I was just waiting for people, and people would wait to book only when they could come in a group. But then I decided to open it.
And when did you open?
Right after I came back from Copenhagen.
So that's
2020.
Just before COVID.
Just before COVID. And 21, it opened doors to the public, to the guests. But 2020 to 21 and during COVID, between those lockdowns, I was doing it for friends and family only. Yeah. So 2021. So it's the third year running now.
And it's taken off, I know that.
Yeah, I'm quite happy considering where I am in Aurangabad and the kind of market it is. It's quite erratic. It's very price sensitive as well. So I think it's the cheapest. I still like to believe that I'm serving the cheapest tasting menu in the country right now. There's a lot of focus because it's super tight, it's super small. We do, and plus we don't kind of play around with a lot of things. My focus is on showcasing 2 or 3 ingredients on a plate, or especially one with supporting elements.
So how would you describe your food and your cooking style?
It's quite simple, creative, simple. No fuss, no muss, not beating around the bush. It used to be like I started off in French kitchen with too many elements on one plate. I liked Relae because of the fact that it was like super simple, but yet a lot of thought process goes behind creating that simple looking dish. So that's something which I brought back and started applying to the food I do there. We do about 9 courses, 3 sweets and 6 savories.
And how often do you get around to changing your menu?
3 months, every 3 months.
Wow. Yeah. But I know that your food looks beautiful. It's, it really, it photographs well, which is how I sort of discovered you on the holy grail of Instagram. How do you sort of feel about that? Because that's something that's quite debatable among chefs in terms of like, is the food made for the gram, or is it, does it actually pack a punch in terms of flavor? And, so how do you ever get that?
The guests who have eaten will question that I hope it tastes as good. Yeah, when they, a couple of times I've got these messages on Instagram because of late we've been getting a lot of clients from Bombay actually coming down. After we got mentioned in one of the issues of Condé Nast, which I wasn't aware of. It just happened that, this lady came and I wasn't there at that time during service. My boys in the kitchen served this lady and she turned out to be a Condé Nast food reviewer, and she put up a post and suddenly we had yeah. So my dream is to put it on the map. Like apart from the historical monuments, if someone's coming for good food, then Accentuate should be on their itinerary. Coming back to the question which you asked, it is a pressure. I do understand that, a lot of chefs are doing it for the gram, that, it has to look a certain way. But then when you taste, it's kind of, how do I put it, flat. So we try and not do that. Yeah, hopefully. And we hope that, people find it tasty too. So far, we haven't disappointed.
Amazing. So what was it like cooking for Mrs. Clinton? How did that happen?
Hillary. It just came by people who were hosting her and designing her itinerary, heard about Accentuate doing these private tables. So they came down without telling us that, the plan was to host Hillary, and they came down, they had the meal and they were happy. And then they said that we actually came with an intention to have your food first and then ask you if we liked it, that would you be interested in doing this meal for Hillary? So of course, who would say no? And they were quite straightforward about not being able to do it at a studio or anywhere because there was a lot of security issues and things. So they asked me if I could do it near Elora Caves, the valley, and a organic farm which where she was staying. So we said yes, and it was a small private table of 5, which we did, and she was super sweet. Yeah, super sweet. And for the first time, we did something modern Indian because they said it'll be great if you could play with Indian, which we never do. And we did, and we were kind of nervous as well, but we used a lot of ingredients from their farm. Did a meal, and yeah, all went well.
I have to ask you this. I'm not a chef, and so it's very hard for me to explain what cooking here is like. But as a chef, how would you describe this to someone who hasn't been?
I'd already been here for a workshop.
Oh,
When it had just started out, I think it was Tim Donnan.
yeah.
11 Madison Park for the sauces workshop. So I was blown away. It's just this is what I love, the height, of course the equipment and the utility and the support which we get from the team. And it's it's Bombay. It's or any kitchen you go, it's super tight, and you're just like, here you can just like spread out. The first one was massive. The second one was which we just did a couple of months ago. Was super private for Singleton, India.
So I have to tell you, because I was in Singapore when this meal was happening, and the next morning, I, being ahead in time over there, I got on Instagram, and suddenly the inbox was flooded with these pictures of the butter that you did as a jigsaw puzzle. And, I was like, what is this? It was just blowing up on our Max Street Kitchen Instagram. So tell us a little bit about that dish.
The idea came up when I went to a kitchen supply store here in Bombay, one of the big stores, and I'd gone to pick up a few silicone molds for pastry, and I saw this jigsaw puzzle, and I immediately thought, oh, would be a nice way to serve 3 types of butters with the brioche back at Accentuate.
Right.
So we do a bread course with butter as a third course on the menu usually. That's when we decided to bring it down for this to MSK as well for the event. But the only challenge was we had just had two molds, and I couldn't find more at the same, like they were sold out. The same mold wasn't there. So I was freaking out as to how we do it, but we wanted to do it. So I got some help from some volunteers who had come down to help. 2 boys actually lived in the walk-in and the freezer for 2 days straight, and they were just like molding 3 types of butters, and they were like all puzzles everywhere inside, and they one almost fell sick by the end of the day because he was like standing inside the walk-in and the freezer just doing the puzzles, bringing them together. And we managed to finally give 1 puzzle per person.
Well, it worked because I think it was the dish of the night for sure. So the humble butter.
The humble butter, the fake butter.
We talked a little bit about this earlier in terms of your huge sort of fan following with culinary students, and it's obviously because of your involvement with the hospitality schools. But what would your sort of advice be to them? Coming fresh out of school, today?
Fresh out of culinary school, just put your head down, choose your workplace very wisely.
What would be some of the things that they should think about?
First, do not worry about, a lot of chefs say this, it's a cliche, I'll repeat it again. All the kids are smitten by liquid nitrogen, the foam machines, and all these things, molecular, which is very passe. We got to use it, but very smartly and very creatively. That cannot be star on the plate, and a lot of kids want to run before they can walk, learn how to walk. And just by when you're stepping out of the culinary arts school, you're not ready yet. You still have a long way to go. Give yourself 3 years, put your head down, learn the basics, learn the authentic or the traditional stuff first. Keep your eyes open, read a lot of books, invest in books. Do not invest in knives or a knife tattoo. Yeah, everyone seems to get a knife tattoo first thing. Yeah. Spend money on books. Read a lot. I still do. No one's got sent. It's an industry which keeps you on your toes because you're always learning. Things are evolving every day. I still don't know many things. Just read a lot, do your bit of research, and stay relevant. Even if you're working at some place where you're probably doing old school, but then stay relevant or be wary of things, what's happening. And yeah, just head down and work for the first 3 years. Think or to at least know and be sure of what you want to do and what kind of food you want to do. Would it be casual or would it be fine dining? Yeah,
Cuisine as
yeah,
well.
the cuisine as well.
No, great words of advice there. If there was anything that you would like to sort of change about the teaching program in culinary school today, or like hotel
It's
management?
quite dated. We are still living in the 1960s, which is very important to have Escoffier recipes being taught to students. But by the time the students reach third year, all they're saying and they start learning a lot of things about what's happening around. And the same is not being taught. There's a huge gap. So the teachers especially be relevant as to what's happening. They kind of, I felt that the teachers in India, I'm sorry, whoever they are, but then I've worked very closely with a lot of them. We need to step up, and certain schools like there's Bombay, there's a pastry school, especially pastry schools are doing extremely well, and they're doing great stuff.
Like they're newer, and so they're kind of coming in with a much more recent and modern perspective on how to do things. Yeah.
Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, the pastry schools are doing great. The cooking on the hot side is still a huge gap and they need to step up. Yeah, there are a lot of chefs who are doing some amazing stuff, and especially with the local produce. And gone are those days when people used to crave for the buffalo mozzarella brought in from Australia, Italy, which didn't make any sense.
The table we use, Eleftheria, which is Indian, and it's perfectly good product. And no, I think you're spot on. I think the regional cuisine and homegrown brands are making their mark in a really significant way. And I actually feel like as far as like regional cuisine, COVID had a lot to do with that, because that's what people went back to their roots and worked on that, and sort of may have started in a smaller format. I see so many articles I remember reading after COVID, the death of fine dining, and I was like, what? We've just like survived this apocalypse, and now you're ready to kill us off again. But no, I mean, you're right. It's I think the casual format is definitely having its moment right now, and it's what people, I think it comes back to that, right? People feeling comfortable where they're eating.
Even at Accentuate, we don't call ourselves a fine dining space. It's not. We call it fun dining because it's so private, and people come with this, the chef is going to be there, but then that's something which I'm trying to kind of, which I will ask you post this advice, because a lot of the my clients want me to be there, wherein the food is as good as when I'm not around, and so that's something which is there. But then we make it fun and we make it super casual. It's just like walking into someone's house, sitting at the table and having a tasting.
And it's time for a quick rapid fire, and Chef, be as honest as you have been throughout. Okay, so restaurant awards, yay or nay? What?
No.
Nah, okay. Good. Plant-based meats, bad fad or here to stay?
Here to stay.
Yeah. Do you cook with them?
It's difficult. We love our meats, but then yes, something which has been on our mind, that it's very important that we should consider doing some plant-based meals.
Interesting. Gluten-free, vegan or Jain, what kind of guest is your favorite?
A lot of pseudo ones.
No, but if they come and say that they are...
If they're genuinely, intolerant.
I'm going to test it.
Intolerant, but I've seen most of the time, especially in the recent times, I've had a lot of vegan guests or say some celiacs. They come and then they see the bread being served and they dig in, and they dig into the butter too. When they claim to be vegan, and gluten intolerant, I've seen that happen too.
Well, okay, and which is your favorite food city in the world that you've been to with?
Food city, Copenhagen used to be. I feel
Or even if you haven't been.
where I'd like to go. Definitely, Singapore is one place to explore, and Rome is something which I would love to go and try out the food there.
Amazing. And a restaurant that's on your bucket list that you're yet.
Franzen and Eskadet. I think that's how you pronounce it in Sweden. It's a fireplace, like they do cooking on open fire.
This is crazy because you're the second chef who said that, and I haven't had that many chefs on the show, so I think I have to put this on my bucket list too. But anyway, listen, Chef, thank you so much for making the time, and I can't wait to actually now eat your food as well.
And we can't wait to have you there. Thank you so much.